You might think this is just another tech horror story, the kind you scroll past in the dead of night while pretending not to be afraid. But if you value your sanity even just a little, stop reading now. Don't scroll down. Don't click. Don't even think about opening that hidden folder on your phone. I know that sounds dramatic, but I'm serious. There's a reason people whisper about it online, a reason entire threads vanish from forums, and a reason some people, well, they just disappear. It starts innocuously enough. Phones are designed to hide things, right? Files, old downloads, little digital corners where your clutter goes to rest. You might have a folder called miscellaneous, notes, or just stuff that you never touch. Most of the time, it's harmless. Pictures of lunch you'll never post. Screenshots of jokes you forgot 5 minutes after taking. But some folders aren't meant for casual curiosity. Some folders are waiting silently for someone careless or curious enough to pry open the wrong file at the wrong time. That's exactly what I did. And the moment I did, I realized that a phone isn't just a tool. It can be a mirror, a doorway, a warning. The hidden folder looked like any other folder, small, almost apologetic in its appearance. No icons, no flashy names. Nothing to betray its presence except for the way it seemed off. The files inside weren't organized. They weren't labeled in ways that made sense. They just existed like something that shouldn't exist at all. Grinning face. And yet, it called to me. It's tempting, isn't it? The unknown, the forbidden, the files you're told never to open. You tell yourself it's just curiosity. You tell yourself you're careful. But those warnings, the ones people post online and then delete as if they never existed, aren't there to scare you. They're there because once you open it, everything changes. Reality doesn't stay the same. Normalcy doesn't survive. I didn't believe it at first. Most people wouldn't. Until that night, when I stumbled across it by accident, my thumb hovering over the screen, feeling a thrill I can't explain. That's when I realized just how easy it is to step from the mundane into something irreversible. And if you're still reading this, you're already teetering on the edge. Most nights, I was just like any other person my age, stuck in that strange, uncomfortable lull between exhaustion and restlessness. My room was dimly lit, a single desk lamp casting long shadows across posters I barely noticed anymore. The hum of my laptop filled the silence, but mostly, I was scrolling. Social media, random forums, endless YouTube videos. Anything to keep the creeping loneliness at bay. My phone was practically glued to my hand, a constant companion in that quiet, empty space. I had always been drawn to technology, not in a way that was unusual, just enough to notice little quirks and oddities. The kind of person who looks at file directories for no reason, or checks timestamps on downloads, or notices when something doesn't line up. It was harmless, obsessive curiosity at its peak, the kind that made late-night scrolling feel more like an exploration than procrastination. That night, as rain tapped lightly against my window, I felt the usual mix of boredom and restlessness. Notifications had stopped buzzing hours ago. Everyone I knew was asleep or out somewhere, leaving me alone with the glow of my phone. That's when I noticed it. A folder I didn't remember creating. Its name was innocuous, something like archive or hidden. But it was the way it sat there, quiet, unassuming, almost pleading for attention. Everyone told me not to. I remembered reading online. Some random forum warning about files and folders that shouldn't be opened. Most people dismissed it as urban legend or paranoia. Me? I didn't listen. Not completely. Something about that folder. It hummed with a subtle energy, like it knew I was about to find it. I tapped it open the first time, hesitant. Inside, there were files with strange names: 001, Donut94, Readmaster, TXT. Timestamps didn't make sense. Some dated from years ago, others from the future, though how that could be possible, I had no idea. Each file seemed mundane in isolation, but together, they felt alive, patient, aware. I kept scrolling. A chill ran down my spine, though I told myself it was just the air conditioning. My thumb hovered over the next file, and a sense of unease started to creep in, quiet but insistent. It was like walking through a familiar room and realizing the shadows had subtly shifted while you weren't looking. Small, almost imperceptible changes, but enough to make your pulse quicken. Every rational thought I had screamed at me to stop. Close the phone, leave the folder alone, forget it ever existed. But the same obsessive curiosity that had led me here kept pulling me deeper. Each file, each anomalous timestamp, each name that seemed to whisper unintelligible warnings. Everything demanded that I look further. The mundane normalcy of my life. A small room, a warm bed, the familiar glow of my screen, was rapidly colliding with something else. Something patient, unseen, and waiting for a careless mistake. And in that moment, staring at the files that shouldn't exist, I felt the thrill and terror of curiosity intertwine. I swiped one last time, my thumb trembling. The folder seemed almost to sigh, to acknowledge my hesitation. And then, as if daring me to cross the line, I tapped a file. The moment I tapped it, everything changed. At first, the folder seemed almost ordinary. Screenshots of old apps, fragments of notes I didn't remember typing, random audio clips that made no sense. I clicked on one file, expecting a mundane image or a garbled text document. Instead, I found a simple screenshot of my home screen, my wallpaper, my icons, even the battery percentage. I froze. I hadn't taken that screenshot, at least not consciously. Shrugging it off as a coincidence, I moved to the next file. A short text note opened, filled with gibberish characters and symbols. The kind you might expect from a corrupted file, except one line stood out. "I know you're looking. Don't stop now." My heart jumped. I laughed nervously, telling myself it was a leftover joke I'd typed and forgotten. But then, the next file opened, and the words were different. "You shouldn't be here. Turn back." It wasn't just the content that was unsettling. The timestamps were impossible. One file was dated 3 years in the future. Another claimed to have been modified just seconds ago, despite the folder being untouched for months. I double-checked the system clock on my phone. It was correct. Everything about this folder defied logic, yet it was all right there in my hand, innocent-looking and terrifying at the same time. I scrolled through more files, each one more disorienting than the last. A screenshot of my text messages, but from a conversation I hadn't had yet. A note that seemed to describe exactly what I was thinking. The air in my room felt heavier, the lamp casting harsher shadows. My pulse quickened. I knew someone was watching, or maybe something, and the realization made the air crawl against my skin. A short audio file made me jump. It was a faint voice whispering my name. I paused it, rewound it, tried to convince myself it was a random glitch, an echo of some recording I'd never recognized. But my gut told me otherwise. Every file, every irregular timestamp, every cryptic message, it was all tailored to me, personalized in a way that shouldn't have been possible. The mundane familiarity of my phone, the glow of the screen, the tiny vibration of notifications, felt suddenly sinister. What had once been my window to entertainment and connection was now a corridor of unease. Every swipe revealed something that seemed normal until it wasn't. Every icon, every file, every timestamp became a question mark I didn't want to answer. And then I found it. A single file named simply look_closer.txt. Hesitant, I tapped it. The text inside was typed in a font that looked eerily like my own handwriting. "You are not alone. We've been waiting." My breath caught. I stared at the screen, the room around me silent but somehow more oppressive. I couldn't tell if I was seeing a warning, a threat, or some cruel game. For the first time, I understood what everyone online had been warning about. The hidden folder wasn't just a folder. It was alive, aware, and it had been waiting for someone like me. My curiosity had opened the door, and whatever existed on the other side was beginning to respond. I wanted to close the phone, to lock it away, but a part of me, irrational, addicted, terrified, wanted to see more. I was teetering between self-preservation and the need to know, and I felt the folder nudging me, patient and insistent. I could sense the unseen intelligence behind it, like eyes just beyond the screen, watching, learning. Every file seemed to breathe. Every timestamp pulsed. Every message whispered promises and threats at the same time. And in that tense, quiet moment, I realized I had crossed a line. The ordinary had dissolved. My phone was no longer just a phone. It was a conduit to something I didn't understand. Something that could reach me, even here, in the safety of my dimly lit room. Started small. At first, it was just notifications that didn't make sense. Alerts from apps I didn't have. Messages from unknown numbers with nothing but ellipses. Or single words that didn't fit any conversation I was having. I tried to dismiss them, thinking it was a glitch, but they kept coming faster, more insistent, like a persistent tap on the back of my mind that I couldn't shake. Then the apps started acting strangely. My messaging app would open on its own, scrolling through conversations I didn't recognize. Music apps played distorted songs I'd never downloaded. Even my camera would activate without warning, showing me angles of my own room I didn't expect. Corners I hadn't noticed, shadows I couldn't explain. Every swipe, every tap, every attempt to regain control felt futile. The phone wasn't just a device anymore. It was a prison. I tried to call my best friend, hoping someone else could ground me in reality. "Hey, you okay?" he asked casually. I don't know," I stammered. "Something's wrong with my phone. It's like it's alive." "Alive? What do you mean?" I hesitated. Could I even explain it without sounding insane? I don't know how to describe it. Files, notifications, things that shouldn't exist. And there, I paused, feeling the hair on my arms stand up. They're like they know me. There was silence on the other end. Then a low laugh. "Sounds like the stories online," he said quietly. "You remember those posts? The hidden folders, the glitches? People disappearing?" I swallowed hard. I remembered. I'd read them, laughed at them, shrugged them off. "Yeah, I wish I'd listened," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. The next day, even my family started noticing. My mother asked why I seemed distracted, staring at my phone as if it were communicating in a language no one else could hear. I forced a smile. "Just tired," I said. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the folder wasn't content with staying digital. It wanted more. It wanted me to notice. It wanted control. And it was gaining it. The notifications evolved into messages that predicted my actions. I would pick up my phone, and before I could unlock it, a message would pop up. "Looking now. Don't hide." Sometimes the message wasn't typed. It appeared as an image, a screenshot of my own hand hovering over the phone, exactly as it was in real life. Every time I thought about putting the phone down, my curiosity clawed back at me. Couldn't stop. It wasn't just the thrill of seeing what was next. It was the knowledge that the folder could feel hesitation, that it could watch me react and maybe even punish me for ignoring it. If you've ever seen a notification that shouldn't exist, one that seems to anticipate your thoughts, you know the gnawing anxiety I felt. It wasn't just paranoia. It was confirmation that something unseen was monitoring me, learning me, waiting. I began to notice patterns, small ones at first. Every time I tried to delete a file, the system would lag, freeze, and then, hours later, the same file would reappear. Sometimes the folder itself seemed to rearrange. Files I hadn't touched moving around as if responding to me. I spoke aloud to myself as though talking might make sense of it. "It's just a bug. Just a glitch. Nothing more." But the unease only deepened. And then, a notification popped up that made my stomach twist. "We know what you did today. You can't hide." No sender. No app. Nothing familiar. Just words that hit too close to home. My hands shook as I locked the phone, tossed it onto the desk, and stared at it like it was a living thing, coiled and patient, daring me to reach for it again. I tried to walk away, tried to ignore it, to leave it alone, but the feeling followed me. Even when I closed my eyes, I could almost see files shifting, rearranging themselves in some slow, methodical way. The normal, safe world. The small room, the bed, the lamp, the rain tapping outside, had been invaded by something digital, intelligent, and cruel. Every mundane interaction, every moment of supposed safety, was now tinted with paranoia. By the end of the week, I realized the truth. The folder didn't just sit there. It watches, it waits, and it punishes hesitation, disbelief, and, most of all, ignorance. No matter what I tried, factory reset, deleting the app, powering off, the files persisted. Every attempt to reclaim normalcy failed, as if the phone itself had become a cage I couldn't escape. And in that moment, I understood that my curiosity had done more than just open a folder. It had given the folder permission. Permission to see me, learn me, and trap me in a loop of my own making. I knew I shouldn't, but I had to see. The temptation was unbearable. Each file I opened felt like stepping closer to something I wasn't meant to understand. Yet I couldn't stop myself. That night, I sat with the phone on my lap, the dim lamp painting my room in flickering shadows, and dove deeper into the hidden folder than I ever had before. The first anomaly that truly unsettled me was a photo folder labeled simply Faces. I opened it expecting random stock images or old memes. Instead, my heart seized. Each picture was of a person, but not just any person. They were strangers, at least I thought they were. Yet in the background of every photo, there were subtle details that unervingly resembled my own life. A street corner I had walked past, a coffee shop I frequented, the exact pattern of my curtains. I shivered. How could these strangers' lives intersect so precisely with mine? Then I discovered the diary entries. Text files filled with personal confessions, written in intimate, agonizing detail. At first, I assumed they were stolen from forums or blogs. But as I read, I realized something impossible. The entries described thoughts I had had years ago, feelings I had never shared, memories I didn't even know I remembered. It was as if the folder was collecting more than files. It was collecting my attention, my thoughts, maybe even fragments of my mind. A video file caught my eye next. The title was the simplest yet most disturbing. Tonight.mp4. I hesitated for a long moment before pressing play. The video showed my room, my desk, my lamp, my chair, filmed from an angle I had never seen, yet instantly recognized. I was sitting there, in real time, scrolling on my phone, frozen with horror as I realized I was watching myself. My own actions captured and displayed as if the folder anticipated them. I wanted to close it, to delete it, but curiosity chained me in place. And then I began to notice a pattern. The files weren't random. They were a network, a web of attention. Each file linked to another, forming a chain of observation. Photos from strangers, diary entries I didn't write, videos I didn't record. They all converged into an eerie, deliberate system. The folder didn't just store things. It collected them. Knowledge, focus, perhaps even a fragment of the soul of anyone who looked too closely. I started muttering aloud, half to reassure myself, half to anchor myself in reality. It's just data, just files, nothing more. But the folder seemed to react. A file I had never seen appeared instantly, titled, "You Shouldn't Be Whispering." My stomach dropped. I could feel it observing my thoughts, monitoring my fears. The thrill of forbidden knowledge had shifted into terror. And it wasn't only about observation. Some files hinted at rules, almost like commandments written for a game I had never agreed to play. Delete the wrong file and consequences follow. Watch too long and the line between watcher and watched blurs. Ignore a warning and it reaches beyond the digital to touch the real. I understood then that this wasn't just a folder, it was part of something bigger. A system designed to collect, to record, and to ensnare those who dared peek behind the curtain. I tried to reason, to think logically, but the logic failed. The more I explored, the more I realized the horror consequences of my curiosity. Each click was a choice, each scroll a decision with weight I couldn't measure. The mundane thrill of discovery now collided with the visceral fear that I was no longer in control. And then it happened. The first direct threat. A file, previously blank, filled with text as I watched. "You're too close. Step back or suffer the same fate." My heart raced, my hands shook. I stared at the screen, unable to look away, unable to breathe. The folder had reacted. It knew I was reading, knew I was defying its warnings. And now it was communicating. Not in a simple glitch or coincidence, but intentionally, directly. For the first time, I felt the raw weight of the folder's presence. It wasn't passive. It wasn't inert. It was aware, intelligent, and patient. and it wanted something from me. Something I didn't yet understand, but whatever it was, I knew that ignoring it would not save me. The room, my safe haven until now, felt charged with a silent menace. Shadows seemed sharper, the glow of the lamp harsher, the phone vibrating subtly as if urging me forward and daring me to retreat. The thrill of curiosity, once intoxicating, now coiled in my chest like a living thing, warning me that the consequences of my exploration were just beginning. It was no longer subtle. The folder had stopped hiding behind strange files and cryptic timestamps. It was directly engaging me. My phone buzzed with notifications before I even touched it, predicting my movements with eerie precision. I tried to step away from my desk, but a message appeared instantly. Going to leave? Not yet. I froze mid-step, staring at the screen as if it could physically restrain me. What the hell? I muttered aloud. My voice trembled, but the words barely registered even to me. The room felt suffocating, the lamp casting sharp, exaggerated shadows across the walls. Every reflective surface, the screen of my laptop, the glass of my window, seemed to hold movement where there should have been none. I caught glimpses of shadowy figures just behind me, or maybe in the corner of the room, but every time I turned, nothing was there. My pulse hammered in my ears, but curiosity, that dangerous spark, kept my thumb hovering over the folder. I opened a file that I hadn't touched before. The contents made my stomach twist. It was a video of myself, but not in the present. I was shown moments I didn't remember experiencing, trapped in scenarios that hadn't happened yet. In the video, I reached for my phone, the screen lighting my face in the same pale glow I saw now. And then, a single phrase appeared in the file's metadata. Soon. I laughed nervously, a sound that surprised even me. Okay, this is insane. Totally insane. Maybe it's a hack or a prank? Yeah. Someone's screwing with me. But as I spoke, another message appeared. You're not laughing now. The screen pulsed slightly, almost breathing, as if mocking my denial. I tried to call my friend again. You won't believe this, I said, pacing. The folder, it's predicting what I do. It knows when I move, when I breathe. I saw myself in a video. Future me, maybe. Future you? Are you? Dude, calm down, he said. But even through the phone I could hear the tension in his voice. Maybe you're just tired. Sleep. Sleep, I barked. Do you know what it feels like to have something in your pocket watching your every move? To see yourself before it even happens? What would you do if your phone decided you were the target? The call ended shortly after. Even though I wanted to believe it was paranoia, the messages continued. Files morphed in real time, displaying snapshots of my room, my movements, even objects I had only glanced at seconds before. I tried turning the phone over, placing it face down, hoping it would relent. Didn't. Pulsed in my hand, vibrating as if alive, urging me to look again. I caught a shadow in the screen's reflection. A silhouette crouched in the corner of the room, impossible to place yet unmistakably there. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and it remained. I laughed again, dark and hollow. Sure, it's just a shadow. Totally normal. I'm just overthinking it. But even as I forced myself to rationalize, another file opened on its own. You know it's not just a shadow. Panic clawed at me. I shouted at the folder. What do you want from me? Silence. Then, slowly, letters appeared one by one in a blank text file. Attention. You must give it, or leave it, but you cannot hide. I backed away, my mind racing. I wanted to destroy the phone, smash it against the desk, toss it out the window, anything. But I hesitated, fingers trembling, realizing, somehow, it wouldn't end it. The files persisted. The messages pulsed even when the screen was cracked, as if the folder existed independently of the device. In a last-ditch effort, I attempted a factory reset. I watched the progress bar fill, hoping for relief, praying for it. But when the phone powered back on, the hidden folder was there, intact, as if it had never been touched. My hands shook so violently I dropped it. The screen lit up on its own. We see you. Always. I laughed bitterly. a mixture of disbelief and dark humor. "Well, that's comforting," I muttered, gripping my hair. It was no longer about curiosity. It was survival. Every attempt to regain control, every rational explanation had failed. I was trapped in a personal nightmare, my safety and autonomy overridden by something that existed in the pale glow of my phone, omnipresent and patient. I realized then that the phone was no longer mine. The device I had carried, relied on, and trusted had become a conduit for something aware, something that had learned to manipulate both the digital and the physical. And I understood, with chilling clarity, that no matter what I did next, the folder was watching, waiting, and far from finished red heart. By the time I realized how far this had gone, the line between my phone and my reality had blurred completely. It wasn't just notifications or strange files anymore. The house itself seemed to respond to the folder. My laptop would open apps on its own. Doors clicked as if someone or something was walking past. Lights dimmed and brightened in unnatural rhythms, and the faint hum of my electronics carried a tone that made my teeth ache. The room I had known every inch of felt suddenly alien, hostile, like stepping into a mirror where nothing reflected correctly. My friends started disappearing from my life. First, I thought it was coincidence. One stopped answering texts for days. Another claimed their phone went haywire and eventually vanished without explanation. Forums I frequented, those threads where people shared their experiences with unexplained digital phenomena, were suddenly gone, deleted as if they had never existed. Every time I tried to research, the answers evaporated. Even the archives of my own messages and emails were subtly altered, with gaps I couldn't account for. It was like the folder had reached beyond my phone to erase the world I knew, reshaping it according to its own rules. I caught myself checking reflections constantly. Windows, screens, mirrors. Every surface felt like it could betray something watching me. Once, I glanced at my laptop screen and froze. My own face was there, staring back, but not exactly me. There was a slight delay, a twitch in my expression that I hadn't made, a subtle movement of my fingers on the keyboard that didn't correspond to mine. My pulse raced as I realized the folder didn't just observe, projected. It manipulated. It made me question whether anything I saw or remembered was real. I began posting cautiously in obscure forums, hoping for guidance. I referenced cases I'd read about, previous warnings buried in old Reddit threads, cryptic messages on 4chan boards. A few responses trickled in, vague and hesitant. "You're not the first," one user typed. Another said, "If you keep looking, you'll see us too." These messages were brief, almost apologetic, as if the writers understood the futility. I realized then that the folder wasn't a one-off phenomenon, it was systemic. A network, something older, more intelligent, that had been collecting, observing, and feeding off the curiosity of anyone who strayed too close. Every sound in my house became suspect. My kettle whistled, but it was irregular, jerky, like a code I couldn't decipher. My television flickered between channels on its own, showing brief frames of text that resembled file names from the hidden folder. I couldn't leave the room without anxiety twisting my stomach into knots. And yet, I couldn't stop looking. Each time my thumb hovered over the screen, I felt both dread and compulsion. The folder had altered my perception. Clock spun irregularly, the phone sometimes displaying the wrong time entirely. Notifications appeared in the middle of the night, predicting my movements or my thoughts. Shadows stretched impossibly long or vanished entirely. I found myself questioning whether I was awake or trapped inside some recursive loop created by the folder. A personal nightmare where curiosity had granted entry to something that didn't obey the laws of reality. I started muttering to myself, trying to rationalize the creeping madness. It's just coincidence, just pattern recognition. But I knew better. I had read the forum posts, the confessions, the warnings that disappeared almost as soon as they appeared. People had vanished under eerily similar circumstances. And if I was reading this, if I had stumbled across these words, the audience, the ones watching, reading, listening, might understand, or might fall into the same trap. That realization was almost worse than any immediate terror. The possibility that this was a universal mechanism, and that curiosity alone could grant the folder access. And then I saw it, Through the reflection of my window, a faint movement in the corner of the room. A silhouette crouched impossibly still, watching. I knew it wasn't human. I knew it was connected to the folder. My phone vibrated suddenly, displaying a message I didn't touch. You know what we are. Prepare. My breath caught, my hands shook, and a cold realization settled over me. There was no longer any distinction between my life and the influence of the folder. Everything I knew, everything I trusted was under observation. The safe familiarity of my room, my home, my life, had dissolved. The folder wasn't just on the phone anymore, it was everywhere. Watching, anticipating, waiting. And I understood, with a clarity that was both terrifying and inevitable, that I was being led toward a final confrontation. There would be no turning back. The moment of reckoning was coming, and I had nowhere to hide. I had been staring at the phone for hours, maybe days. I couldn't tell anymore. Time had stretched and folded in ways that didn't make sense. The folder pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat, and every file I opened now felt like it was breathing. That's when I noticed a new message, unlike the previous taunts or predictions. It was simple, typed in stark black letters on a blank screen. Do you want to know why we exist? My hands shook as I tapped yes. A figure appeared on the screen, a face blurry at first, then sharpening into something human, though wrong in all the ways I didn't want to notice. Its eyes were too deep, too aware, and it smiled faintly. You've been patient, it said in a voice that somehow resonated inside my skull. Few endure this long. Most quit before the truth. But you're ready. Ready for what? I whispered. The folder is not simply a collection of files. It is a vessel, it said. A repository for attention, memories, moments, even fragments of souls. Every click, every second spent inside adds to it. It learns. It grows. It waits. And now it has learned enough from you. I recoiled. Souls? What do you mean? This is insane. The figure tilted its head, almost amused. Insane? Perhaps. But true. The files you've seen, photographs of strangers, diary entries, videos of lives you didn't know existed, they're not random. They are the essence of those who observed, those who lingered, those who failed to look away. And now you are part of it too. I laughed, bitter, hollow. So what if I close this, if I delete it, I'm done? I'm safe. The figure's smile didn't waver. Deletion is a joke. Attempting to destroy us only feeds the folder. Power comes from persistence, from curiosity. You cannot escape. You can only delay the inevitable. That is the rule. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Rule? Whose rule? I had been staring at the phone for hours. The rules of the system, the order beneath the chaos you've glimpsed. The folder does not merely exist to scare. It exists to gather, to collect, to endure. And it has endured far longer than you can imagine. We, those who have survived partially, exist to guide, to warn, or to show the consequences of ignoring the warnings. A chill ran through me. Survivors? There are survivors. Few, and they are scattered. Some are trapped, some hide. Many do not speak. Their cautionary tales are buried online, erased before anyone truly reads them. The folder doesn't just observe. It teaches, punishes, and you are learning far too well. I sank back in my chair, breathing hard, trying to rationalize the absurdity. So what? I'm fodder? Entertainment. The figure's laugh was soft, unervingly human. Not entertainment, necessity. Attention, memory, curiosity, they are currency here, and you have spent yours freely without hesitation. The folder has grown because of you. It has shaped reality, warped time, toyed with your perceptions. And still, you are only beginning to understand. I swallowed hard. My mind darted to my friends, my family, the ordinary moments that had been stolen, altered, erased. The ethical dilemma hit me like a punch. I had been drawn here by curiosity, and that same curiosity could doom others. I shuddered at the thought. What happens now? Now, the figure said, leaning closer, shadows stretching unnaturally behind it. You either attempt to leave, to delete, to resist and fail, or you embrace the rules, accept that what you've touched is beyond comprehension, and hope the folder finds patience with you. Few manage the first, fewer the second. Most disappear. A single line appeared at the bottom of the screen. Do you wish to try? I laughed, bitterly, dark humor curling in my throat. Try? Try to what? Destroy it? Escape it? Good luck with that. I gripped the phone as if physical strength could matter, my fingers trembling, sweat prickling my skin. The room seemed calm for a fraction of a second, a deceptive pause. I almost believed I could reclaim control. Almost. But the calm vanished instantly. The files began rearranging themselves, morphing into impossible shapes, letters forming words that spoke directly to me. Do not ignore. Do not delay. We are patient. We are eternal. And we see all. The shadows in my room flickered in tandem with the text. The lamp dimmed. My reflection in the window seemed to leer at me with a face that was mine, but subtly wrong. I realized that every attempt to leave, to destroy, to ignore, had only fed the system, strengthening it in ways I couldn't understand. The folder's purpose wasn't malicious in a conventional sense. It was inexorable, inevitable. And I, curious and careless, had given it life within me. I leaned back, exhausted, terrified, yet unable to look away. My breath hitched. If I attempted to escape, I might succeed temporarily, but the folder was patient, eternal. And somewhere, in the network of collected attention and stolen moments, it was already planning my next misstep. I knew that what I had glimpsed was just a fraction of its purpose. The full scope of the system, the ultimate horror, was something I might never fully comprehend. And yet, against every instinct, I couldn't stop exploring. When I woke the next morning, the phone was gone. I don't know how or when it vanished. One moment it had been on my desk, glowing faintly like a heartbeat, and the next, nothing. My hands shook as I searched, lifting cushions, checking drawers, even peering under the bed. Gone. The room felt lighter, somehow, but the relief was shallow, fleeting, like exhaling underwater. I tried to convince myself it was over. Maybe deleting, ignoring, or simply surviving the confrontation had been enough. But that nagging unease never fully left. My other devices, the laptop, the tablet, even the smart speaker, occasionally flickered, displayed strange symbols, or opened applications on their own. Files I had never saved appeared in folders I didn't recognize. The hidden folder hadn't left. It had only migrated, patient, watching, waiting for the right moment. Friends reached out in the following days, concerned. Are you okay? They asked. I laughed it off, hiding the tension behind casual words. Yeah, just stressed, I said. But even as I spoke, I noticed oddities. Text messages arriving with empty content, timestamps that didn't make sense, photos I didn't take appearing in my gallery. The digital world had shifted, subtly, irreversibly, and I was acutely aware that the folder's influence lingered. Sometimes, late at night, I hear notifications in my apartment that shouldn't exist. A vibration from thin air. A faint glow from a screen that's powered off. I try to ignore it, to rationalize it, but a part of me knows it's the same presence I faced before. The folder is patient, eternal, and now, having tasted my curiosity, it waits for the next chance to claim attention, knowledge, or something deeper still. I've started posting online cautiously, leaving breadcrumbs on forums, subtle hints of what I experienced. The responses are sparse, some skeptical, some eerily knowing. A few have said they felt it too, the sense that screens, devices, and files are no longer entirely safe, that curiosity itself can summon consequences beyond comprehension. If you've ever checked your hidden folder, you might know what I mean. The line between relief and fear is razor thin now. I survived, yes, but at a cost. A fractured perception of reality, a persistent anxiety that anything I touch digitally could be observed. My life continues, outwardly normal, but under the surface, the pulse of the folder lingers. Every tap, swipe, or scroll carries the whisper of unseen eyes. Every notification could be a message, a warning, or an invitation. I look at empty spaces on my desk where my phone once sat and hear nothing, and everything at once. And I know, deep down, the folder is still there.